All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. My name is Jennifer Colby, and I am the Ann Arbor Public Schools Library Department Chair, as well as being a librarian at Huron High School. And with me tonight is Lisa Pham. She is the elementary librarian at BA and also our lead elementary librarian. And Caroline Hughes, who is at Pioneer, and she will be presenting tonight as she is our resident Sora expert. First off, before we talk about some housekeeping items, I want to just remind everyone that all of our elementary students in the Ann Arbor Public Schools have been instructed on how to access and use Sora the same way that we're teaching you tonight. So if your children want to join us and show you what they already know, that would be amazing. And then we can learn from them too a little bit. We'd like everybody to ask questions in the chat, and Lisa and I will be answering them. Ask questions in the Q&A. The chat feature is disabled for attendees at the moment, but we may post links in it for you. And then this recording will be on the district website, as well as a webinar outline tonight in Arabic, Chinese, English, Korean, Spanish, and Japanese. And also we have more information like the slide deck and frequently asked questions for Sora on our district website. And Lisa just put that link in the chat. So I'm going to turn it over to Caroline, and she will tell us how to access and use Sora.
So I'm going to start out with a few slides, and then I'm going to go into Sora and show you around a little bit. But yeah, feel free to ask questions as you have them. Sora is our ebook platform for independent reading. Your children also have access to Mayan, which is a separate ebook platform. And Mayan is a package of books that are available. We call it simultaneous access. So as many students that want to be in a book at one time can be in it. Sora is a little bit different, where it's much more similar to a print library, where we buy individual copies, even though they're digital. We get that question sometimes from students and teachers. Even though they're digital, the publisher kind of decides how we can provide access. So for some books, your students might have to wait for them, but other books, we might have enough copies to meet demand. And then there are some books that we are given simultaneous access, which means as many students that want to be in that book at one time can be in that book. Okay, so I'm going to start by sharing a few slides with you. So in Sora, we purchase every book that you see in here. The company does give us initially a collection of some books for free. But we're building a lot of the collection based on student requests. So students have a link to a Google form, and we have been hearing from students since the beginning, which is really exciting. So we're trying to integrate as much student voice and choice as possible. So I'm going to show you a couple ways before I go into Sora myself on how to go in and log in, and encourage you to do this as you listen and watch here. So we call it the Google Waffle. It's where there's in a Chrome browser window on the right-hand side, you'll see these 9 dots, and you can click on there and scroll down through the apps until you see the Sora app. And then you click on the Sora app. And that first time you log in, you'll have to look for Ann Arbor Public Schools. But if your child has already logged in before, then you just log in using their Google login. And there are a number of different ways to log in. So we're just gonna go through a few different ways here. Just in case, sometimes you might have a glitch with one way, or sometimes kids find one way easier than another. Another way is, so this actually is showing you here how you select Ann Arbor that first time you log in. You don't have to do this each time. And then you choose your Just in case a student might have a personal Google address, or if they're on a family computer where other members are logging in and out, they're going to want to choose their account with Ann Arbor Public Schools. And then they type in their email password. So the other ways are if you're in Schoology, and you have to be in a Schoology course to see the apps down the left-hand side of Schoology. And down by the Gale apps, there's a Sora by Overdrive app. And that first time it might ask if you want to launch the app, and you just say yes. And similar to the other ways of logging in, you might have to choose Ann Arbor Public Schools and then your Google login. There's also an elementary resource portal in your Schoology course. And this is a close-up of it. It has all sorts of really great resources. And one of them is Sora. So you can just click through that way. And I'm going to pause here for a second and show you that also, if I open up a new tab, this is where I can show you this Google waffle here on the right-hand side. There's also on the left-hand side, this apps. It's the same thing, so you can log in that way. So I'm going to do that right now. And see if I scroll down, I see Sora by Overdrive. And I'm in now. And this is the main Explore page of Sora. And right now, since I'm a staff member in Ann Arbor Public Schools, I'm going to see adult through elementary. So I'll see, my view might be a little bit different than yours if you're logged in as your student. And I have some options here for how to search for a book. If you just scroll down, you can see there's these popular subjects, which I'll just mention. These popular subjects come from the publisher, and we don't have control over them. And you'll notice there is not like equitable representation here amongst different cultural groups. And so that's why we're curating collections as librarians. And so if you scroll down, you'll see read-alongs, which there are 3 formats in Sora. The read-along has the text, and you can listen to a narrator read it. Then there's just the ebook text, which is just like the print book, but it's digital. And then we also have digital audio. So 3 different choices. Read-alongs are really popular with elementary students. And then you'll see these are different curated collections. And depending on whether or not there's a book at each level, this collection will show up or it won't show up. So you can browse through any of these collections. Just a minute right now. I do have a 4-year-old. Just one. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so these are all the curated collections. If you go through graphic novels, are really popular. So you can find a book this way, or if you go back up to the top, you can just click in the search box and you can search for something. I'm going to show you that search all my libraries towards the end when we add the public library. That's one really wonderful thing, is the Ann Arbor Public Library also has an ebook collection from the same company. Their app is actually called Libby, or sometimes they call it Overdrive. And so we get to connect to them, which is really great and generous in expands the amount of selection that your children have to ebooks. So here I could also just do a search here using a keyword or an author or a series. You can also go into preferences here. And this is where, if you were maybe just looking for audio, maybe over a break, you want to listen to something as a family, you can search that way. You can search in specific languages. We are collecting in English mainly, but we will also be having, we have a selection of books in Spanish right now, and we'll be collecting in Arabic and Chinese. And then here I have an audience. Juveniles, actually, these are publisher tags here, but I can see the children's selection here and do apply. If you have a Kindle, you can also sort to see Kindle books here. You just have to make sure you hit apply, and then you just want to remember that you have that preference on. The other thing I can do is when I've done a search, I can refine my results over here to sort in a variety of different ways. The other thing I can do is when I sort, I can click more options. So maybe you want to look for specific text difficulty or Lexile score or ATOS. These are kind of different reading levels that publishers use. We're hoping, since this is not instructional, this is independent reading, this really gives students an opportunity to find books that they're interested in reading, which we know from the research when students make their own choices, they're much more invested in reading and feel much more positive about reading. So again, this is the Explore section, which if I look at the bottom, I have 4 icons: Home, Explore, Shelf, and Me. So when I click on Explore, that's where I can search and I can look through those collections. I can also see the collections up here on the right-hand side. And we're continuing to add to these collections, and we're continuing to add books. So we always encourage people to keep checking back. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to sample and check out a book. And we are asking kids to sample a book if they're not sure they want it. If they know they want that book, then we say, go ahead and check out a book. But we are asking to sample first. And that's because some of the books that we purchase, we get a certain number of checkouts. And so we just want to make sure those checkouts go to someone who really wants to read the book. But we encourage you, if you want to just figure out whether or not you're interested in that book, you can look at the sample and click Read Sample. And the publisher gives us a certain number of pages to preview. And when you're in a book, you just click in the middle, and then you click to the right or the left to turn the page. And then you click in the middle again to close out of the book. And you can change some of your reading settings over here. You can zoom in, you can change it from 1 to 2 pages. And over here, if you go to reading settings, you can also change the size of the font or the font. There is an open dyslexic font down here also. Depending on, in some books, if it's all pictures, you won't have the ability to make those changes. So I'm going to go back here, and now let's say I really want to check out this book. All I have to do is click borrow. So I'll just click borrow, and now it's in my account. So again, I can close out of this, go back to the Explore page. I'm going to show you one more thing before we just take a pause, and I just make sure that if there are any questions or if I need to stop or slow down. So Just like I mentioned, with some of these books, only a certain number of people can be in them. We are monitoring holds. So we really want to make sure that no one's waiting a really long time for books. We have to kind of balance the number of copies we buy with the selection. But we want to make sure no one's waiting more than 6 or 7 weeks for a book. So if you hear your child say, there's like a 4 month wait for a book, a couple things could be going on there. It could be that they're in the public library, which we know the public library has really long waits for some ebooks. It could be sometimes a lot of holds build up really quickly, and we purchase to holds a couple times a week. So we'll buy down to reduce the wait, but it really shouldn't be more than 6, 7 weeks. And most titles, it shouldn't be that long. So holds. And I will just mention that right now we are saying one book at a time in Sora, and that's to spread out the books across all students in the district. So as soon as they're done with a book, I'm going to show you how they can return it and check out something else. And our limit is 14 times the checkout. So right now, that's 14 books in a 7-day period. And then it won't let them check out more. And it does wait for 7 days from that day that they hit the limit to have them check out again. It's an unfortunate part of the system. They designed it that way because sometimes, and we have seen this, students check them out for like 2 minutes, check it back in, check something else out. So it's just a technical feature of the system. We're hoping to increase checkouts, which would then increase the number of titles they could check out in a week. But we know that elementary students do have access to Mayan, which is unlimited. And then also with the public library, they can check out 15 books at a time, which equals over 200 books in a 7-day period. So we know between our collection and the public library collection, that's hundreds of books a week. And so just stay tuned for me to show you how to hook up the public library. So to do a hold, I'm going to go down to where I know some books are checked out. And so if I click on, let's scroll down to read-alongs here. And I click on here, and most of these collections will put the books that are available towards the front of the collection. So again, these are the books that you can see the words and listen at the same time. Go here towards the end. Hold, which is great to see all these books are available. We've been working hard to make sure kids have a really great selection of books. Okay, so you'll see here, these are the books you would have to place a hold on. And what I can do is click on this little clock to see how long is the wait. Oh, it's 1 week. Okay, so you can place one hold at a time. And I'm going to click place hold. And I already have a hold, so it's going to give me that message. But that's all you would do to get in that queue, to get in that line to place a hold. And then I'm going to show you, if I go down to my shelf here at the bottom, it says shelf. Click on here. And this is where I can see in the middle of the page, it says shelf, and then loans, holds, lists, and history. My loans, I can see everything checked out. And then my holds here, I can see what I have on hold. And I have some options. If I decide I put something on hold, but really I want to put something else on hold, I can go to options and I can cancel my hold right here. The other thing I can do is see when it's going to be ready. Okay, 1 week. And we tell kids to really log into Sora. Once you place a hold, you really want to log in at least every other day to see if your hold is ready. Because once it's ready, They're just going to hold it for you for 3 days. And we really like you to pick it up that first 3 days. So it shortens the wait time for everyone. In the upper right hand corner here, up where you see this little circle in this menu, when your hold is ready, you're going to see a little bell with a red dot. And you'll click on that to pick up the hold. And you can defer it for a week, or you can click here on the menu and you can go to hold settings, and where it says active, like maybe you're going to be really busy, but you want to hold your place in line, you can freeze your hold. And then when you're ready, you just make it active again. So that is holds for right now. Just make sure everyone's, don't see any questions there. So I'm going to do something really quick. I forgot to delete my public library. So just ignore me for one quick second here. Okay.
Caroline, while
Yeah.
you do that, we've had one question about like downloading and can you read books, or do you have to be online to read or listen to a book? So can you just show and answer the question that they're automatically downloaded, but can you just show that to people?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll see when you check something out, and if I go to shelf, it says here, see this one you saw me check out just a few minutes ago, it's downloaded. So the default setting is that it will automatically download. And if you have a Chromebook, it downloads into your browser. And on your iPad, it just downloads. You can also, there's a free Sora app at the Apple Store or the Google Play Store for Androids. So you can do it on your phone too, and it automatically downloads so that when you're offline, like you're in your car or maybe you're just someplace you don't have internet access, you can open that up and just start reading. I have had the question, what if you don't want it to automatically download? Because maybe it's on your phone and you have a data plan or something, or you just don't want it to do that. You can go up here to this menu. Whenever you see these three bars, there are options there. There's a menu. And you can click on download settings and see right now it's downloading everything, but you could choose to download smaller books or say nothing. And then if you do that, on each book, you would have the option to just download what you choose to download. So yeah, that's a great part of Sora, is that you don't have to have the internet all the time in order to listen to or to read a book that you've checked out. Okay, I'm gonna go on here to show you how to add the public library. So what you're gonna do is, you could really do this from any page, but I'm doing this from the Explore page right here. And let me just start out by saying, you don't need a library card to do this. So if you live outside of Ann Arbor, but your students go to Ann Arbor Public Schools, as long as they go to Ann Arbor Public Schools, and actually anyone that works for Ann Arbor Public Schools can get this access. So it's a really great deal. So here, and it's a one-time setup. So I'm going to show you how to do it tonight. It's a little bit tricky, so we encourage you to do it. And then once you're done, it's all set up. And I'll talk a little bit about what they have access to, because we do get questions around that. So I clicked on this menu here in the corner, and now I'm going to click Add a Library. And now I'm going to type Ann Arbor. And I'm going to choose Midwest Collaborative for Library Services. This is a consortium that the Ann Arbor District Library belongs to. They purchase ebooks together. So I'm going to say, this is my library, not Ann Arbor Public Schools, Ann Arbor Midwest Collaborative. So I'm not done yet. That's the first step. And now you can see I could browse and just look for books at this point. And under Explore, I see Midwest Collaborative for Library Services here. And I could also, look at their curated collections too. But what I'm going to do is there's a little drop down arrow here. And I'm going to toggle back to Ann Arbor Public Schools. And the reason why we want you to search from Ann Arbor Public Schools is this is where you're going to have the shortest wait for titles. So sometimes when kids add the public library, they hang out on the public library side, which the bummer about that is you can't tell what we have available and what our waits are for. But I'm going to show you how to see both places at one time. So you go back to Ann Arbor Public Schools by clicking on this drop-down menu. And then I go up to the search box and I click in the search box. And now I'm going to click search all of my libraries. And I'm going to keep this box checked. And at this point, I'm typing in Duke Classics because these are books that are old books that the library doesn't pay for checkout. So if I do this just to set this up, because you are going to have to check out from the public library one time to finish this setup. But if you know something specific you want, feel free to type that in right now. Just make sure search all my libraries is checked. And so I'm going to hit return. And now my results, I see at the top Ann Arbor Public Schools. And I see the results for that. And then I see Midwest Collaborative. So these are the public libraries ebooks here. And I need to borrow one of these books to complete the process. So whatever you searched is fine, but you need to find a book that you can borrow right now to finish this process. So I'm going to choose Little Women here. I'll click on borrow. And now it's going to prompt you, and you don't want to choose the public library. If you get prompted for a library card, just go back because you don't need a library card. So now I'm going to choose Ann Arbor Public Schools. I know it's counterintuitive. Ann Arbor Public Schools. And then I'm going to be prompted to sign in using my Google account again. So it'll take me back to my Google login. And again, this is one time you have to set this up. You don't have to do this every time. So I'm going to click my school login again. And now I'm all set up. And that first time that you check out from the public library while you're setting everything up, sometimes that first checkout doesn't stick. That's just the first time. So if you really did want that book that you just tried to check out as you were setting this up, you can click on shelve. And this is where you would see books from both places now, and your holds from both libraries all show up in one place now. And I see, I don't see Little Women. So if I did want that, I would go back to Explore and I would check that out again. I'll just scroll down. And then the question we often get, which is a great question, is how can I tell if my child's close to that 14 book limit for Ann Arbor Public Schools? And there's really not a great way to do that. If you just had Ann Arbor Schools, you could look at your history, but your history is going to show you checkouts from both libraries, and it won't differentiate which book you got from which library. You can, when you're in your loans, the one way to see which library it's from, which I guess just tells you which one you have it checked out from, is you could click on options, and this is how to return a book. So let's say you finished a book you want to check out a different one from Ann Arbor Public Schools, you go to loans and then options and then return. And it's gonna say, make you do return one more time. But here I can see it's an Ann Arbor Public Schools book here. And I would do return again to get rid of this. This is also where I can renew. And you can only renew when you're within 3 days of the due date. And it tells me that. So here it says due in 15 days. And if I try to renew early, it will just say it's too early to renew this book. You can't renew if there's a hold on that book. So if there's a wait list, you'll have to get back in the wait list. You won't be able to renew. Kind of a bummer. But and our checkout period is 28 days in Ann Arbor Public Schools. And for the public library, it's 14 days. And after that 28 days or 14 days, if you don't renew or you're not able to renew, it just automatically takes the book back. So the good thing about that is no overdues and no lost books. So that's one good thing. And then this is also actually the page where you can send it to a Kindle. And then there's also the Me section where you can track how many books you've opened, how much time you spent reading, and it gives kids some fun badges for different reading accomplishments. So I'm going to stop here and see if there are any new questions.
I think so far we've answered them all. Does anybody have any? Oh, there's one more question right now. Oh, good question. Can we give the book to other classmates, friends? So there's not a way to share a book from one user to another in Sora, if that's what you mean. But you can't, Caroline, do you want to show them how you could maybe more about the lists and the wish lists?
Yeah, so you can see next to the books here, I can do add to list if I hear, let's say I have a book checked out already, but as I'm browsing, I think, oh, I want to come back to this book. Or maybe you want to put all the books in a series, you see them as you're browsing and you just want to do add to list. And so I'm going to add it to my wish list. That's also when you click add to list, you can also give it a heart if you like it, or a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You can also create different lists. And then I can click home. This is also where you may or may not get assignments. But if a book is assigned by a teacher, it would show up here. That's not really happening at elementary right now, but it may eventually show up there. And there is the ability to do notes here. But then also if I go back to me, I'm trying to remember the list, where is that? Oh, my shelf. So if I go back to my shelf and then I go to list, this is where I can see the books I put on my wish list. You also, if you're in your shelf and you're in a book, for options, you can mark as done a book. And then when that becomes one of your lists. And then that will also be a part of your badges. So books that you've marked as done will show up here, or you've given a heart to, or given a thumbs up or thumbs down. So yeah, I think if you, like a friend said, this is a really great book, you should check it out, I'm reading it right now, they could add it this way. And some books, if you go to explore, there are some books, like we were saying, that we initially have from the company, and there are just a few we can purchase this way, but It's called Always Available. And so multiple people can be in that at the same time. Sometimes, if you ever get the spitting here, sometimes I just refresh and that resolves it. So this available now, these are all books that as many kids. So let's say a group of kids wanted to read the same book at the same time. They could choose one of the available now books and do that. Yeah, and I just saw one question about deleting books. Yep, you don't have to delete them unless you're using a Kindle. If you send it to a Kindle, um, then they do expire at some point, but they still, you'll see the titles on there. You do have to delete them. And we do have, I think in our frequently asked questions, we have some information on that. Any other questions?
We did get the question, can you donate money? So yes, of course, we would love you to donate money. But we'd ask that you donate to the PTSO at your school. And then you can say that you would like that money to be donated to Sora from the PTSO. That's probably the best way to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, so one thing we're encouraging is for equitable access is to make sure that everything is available to everybody. But if, for example, your school wanted to have a book club or do something like that, we can purchase them so that first time that book club uses them and then it's available to everyone afterwards. Or if you'd like to see additional copies, or additional, you know, titles in a series or something like that.
And again, this library is meant to be responsive to our students' needs and what they want to read. So we'll put back in the chat, there is a request form that we're sharing with students. And if they look in Sora and they don't see a title that they want to read, they can always request it. And then we'll go through the process of reviewing that request and purchasing it.
Yeah,
Any more questions that you may have right now? We'd be happy to answer.
Caroline, can you show when a hold comes in where they would look to find that? I know it's not going to show since you don't have one at the moment, but
yeah, it's in this upper right hand corner. But you know what I can do is, why don't I go to the slide that shows that? So I'm going to stop sharing just for a second and then I'll pull up the slide. Yeah, we will really encourage you to check Sora regularly for holds. That's what we're finding right now is for many titles that have a holds list, we actually have enough copies for students, but they're just not picking up the holds. And so that just delays everyone that's in that whole queue for that title. Okay. So you'll see here, oh, just 1 second. Sorry, I'm working with 2 screens here. Sometimes it gets a little ornery. So you'll see here, this is where, if there's a hold, this little bell up in the corner with a little red dot shows up. And then this box pops up if you click on the bell. And so it says borrow in green or get it later. So you click borrow, then it just checks out. But you'll have to, if you have something checked out, you'll need to return that before you can pick up that hold. If you say get it later, you kind of pass on that. And then the next time one becomes available, that bell will show up again for you. And if you don't pick it up, after 3 days, it just disappears. It kind of does the same thing, even if you had clicked, get it later. And it will give you one more chance, have that bell show up again, and then you click on there to borrow it.
I think just the one more question we have, Caroline, is can you just show how to find books in another language? And I know right now we're limited. Mayan, the other library for elementary students, has more options for books in other languages, but Caroline can show you how to search for books in other languages.
So go back here to Sora. So here, if you were looking for Spanish, that's been curated into a collection. So I'm just going to scroll down to show you that. And eventually that's where our other collections such as Arabic and Chinese will show up. So all I did was go to the Explore page and just scroll down, and I see books in Spanish, and I can click here. And again, they'll just see books that are available at their level, which we are leveling for developmental appropriateness, not necessarily reading level, so that students who want to read up and difficulty can read up. That's kind of a nice part of this collection. But if it's not developmentally appropriate, then they don't have access to it. So this is where the Spanish books are. But if I went back to Explore, which I can do by clicking on the bottom here or up in that corner, that I can click Preferences, and where it says Language Any. Now this is every language that can be sold there. So we may not have books in some of these languages. But if I chose, let's say Chinese, I think there's a couple in there. And those books come up. And we're just getting started, and we'll be publishing those collections in the next, it's having trouble loading right now, but in the next couple of weeks. So I'm gonna go back here and see what happens if I do Spanish.
So another question is, can you add books in Sora? So I'm assuming that question means, can the user add books in Sora? And the answer to that is no. But that's where you would, if you wanted a book purchased to be added to Sora, then the student can fill in the form, which I'm going to put in the chat. And then we would need to purchase the book to be added to Sora. So there's a link in the chat to the request form if you don't find a book that you're looking for in Sora.
Yeah, and in that request, they can get specific. We've had students that have requested books in other languages, and if they're available, we try and get them.
Okay, thank you everyone for attending tonight. And we will put links to everything we've talked about and the link to this recording on our district website. And we'll put the link in the chat. And if you have any additional questions about Sora or about Mayan for elementary specifically, please contact your school librarian. Oops, looks like we might have one more question. Oh, just a thank you. Okay, thank you everybody.
Thank you.